Welcome to Paddlecast with Betsy
and Billy. On Paddlecast, we talk to and about paddlers who are pushing limits, paddlers who are pushing their own limits, and pushing limits of paddle sports.
We have so much to talk about this week after some major racing last weekend at the World Games and the Sella. So we are dropping 2 episodes. First, a World Games recap, and second, a recap of the Sella and our regular weekly news.
We also managed to get some of the biggest names in marathon racing to contribute to this week's episodes, talking about their races at the World Games and the Sella, so you won't want to miss either one. And with that, let's talk about the World Games. In our preview episode, we predicted a high level of competition with some intense battles, and whilst we didn't get every prediction right, I think we did get the intense battles. I thought some of the best action was in the sprint finishes with Mads and Hamish in both races. And it was great to talk to Hamish after the race. We'll hear from him later.
Yeah, that was really cool to hear from Hamish. We definitely got some good battles at the front. I think we predicted it was going to be sort of a fight between the top 2 in both, and that is what happened. But we also had some really good fights for bronze, which gave us some exciting moments on both the men's and women's races. So let's start with the women's marathon, the long distance. How well did our predictions hold up?
Well, it's funny that you're asking that because my predictions didn't go so well, and your smug little grin kind of gives everyone the hint that you got yours dead right. So we knew that gold and silver would be between Vanda Kiszli and Melina Andersson, and that's what we got. Vanda Kiszli has too many world championships to count. She was the defending World Games champion from 2022, but she lost her world championship title last year to Melina. I had Vanda down for the win. You had Melina. I just felt that Vanda Kiszli would find a way with, a home world championships in 2 weeks. I thought she'd be getting towards her peak again. But Melina Andersson was so dominant in that race. She just controlled everything. She just had complete control over the race. Would there have been any way that Vanda Kiszli could have won?
Yeah, it was really amazing watching the two of them battle, and also, yeah, as you say, just watching Melina, who was so dominant there. And I know we were both watching that, like looking at their tactics really closely. Could Kiszli have changed her tactics and potentially won that race? Could we have gotten more of a sprint finish there? Yeah, so let's look at how the race actually played out. So we started with a really big pack. So the first 3 laps, really short laps of 2 kilometers, no portages. Melina Andersson picked up the lead about 20 minutes into the race. And then by the time they got to the first portage, this is where we see things break up. So this is where we get Andersson and Kiszli out front. There's a chase group of 3 behind them. I definitely thought throughout the race that Melina Andersson had slightly better portages than Vanda Kiszli, which was a little bit of a surprise because Kiszli is such a good portager.
I saw that, and I mean, Vanda Kiszli carries the boat so well. It's always out of the water. The rudder is never, dragging on the water. The boat is always very clean, but she just wasn't getting in very well. Melina Andersson was getting in so cleanly. That's where she was, the difference was really showing.
Yeah, it really was. And Kiszli, as you say, yeah, she carries the boat really cleanly. There's no risk to the rudder. The way that she runs, it's like her torso is completely still. It's just, this is one of the things I like watch. Yeah. It's amazing. But it looked like Melina, even if she had a little bit more movement on the running, that was maybe giving her a speed boost. And then, yeah, it was just on the get-ins. She was so smooth, and Vanda Kiszli was just taking like an extra second or something maybe. But, that makes a difference.
Yeah, it's a gap.
that was where we did see those sort of almost a gap building up. There was a couple of moments where Andersson would maybe, it looked like she was moving out of the portage a little bit more slowly, maybe to let Kiszli catch up, or, Kiszli would get a little bit behind. Andersson wasn't working super hard. And then Kiszli would just kind of like gradually cruise to catch Andersson in a very kind of like measured way and reasonable way. We do see them trading leads. We also saw Vanda Kiszli try to change her portage tactics part way. So initially she was coming out on the same side because it was pontoon portages.
Yeah.
You could pick either side. She was coming out on the same side as Melina Andersson. Then after a couple of portages, swapped to try coming out on the opposite side, presumably trying to kind of like make back a little bit of what she was losing on those portages. I don't really know how much that helped her. It looked to me like it was pretty similar between the two, but
running to the end of a portage is always preferable. And if there's someone on your side and you can't do that, then you can't do that. So it was better to switch. I did also, the wind may have been playing a role there.
Yeah.
Melina was taking the slightly more sheltered side, and Vanda Kiszli was having to put in on the wavy side. But then that would have the opposite effect of, if Melina messed anything up, the boat would float away, whereas Vanda's boat would have stayed in its place. So, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other there. But yeah, that was the portaging was interesting, and yeah, Melina definitely got that small gap each time, and eventually she did decide to go, didn't she?
Yeah. So on that second to last portage, so it was the 6th of 7 portages in the women's race, Melina Andersson just took off. She didn't wait. She lapped a bunch of paddlers, and it was really smooth sailing to a solid finish for Melina Andersson. Vanda Kiszli just kind of got left behind on that portage, and it was too much distance to make up. And it was almost 2 minutes. So Andersson won by almost 2 minutes, which is, really solid win for her.
Yeah, I didn't realize the lead was that much by the end. I sort of, once the move was made, I did sort of tune out of that little battle.
Yeah, as soon as Melina made her move, like there was really, it was pretty much done from there. At least for first and second.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So that does bring me on to the one question that I have about maybe the race could have gone the other way. And this all comes down to in my mind, I've got Vanda Kiszli might be better over a 20-kilometer time trial than Melina Andersson. So when Melina Andersson first got that gap, could Vanda Kiszli have just left her off the front and had a little go on the rolling waves, just gone out wide on those nice big rolling waves behind her, let her do all the work. They're both going to have to do sort of, Vanda Kiszli is still going to have to work fairly hard, but she is going to be on some rolling waves, getting a bit of a ride. Could she have left her out there and then tried to reel her in on maybe the last big lap and hope that, Melina's burnt some of her matches and, levels the playing field for that final sprint. But what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we've got to ask, right? Like, was there a way for Kiszli to win that? Yeah, you're assuming that Kiszli has a better grind than Melina Andersson. I'm not sure. Melina's a really strong and fast paddler.
Yeah, that is a huge assumption on my part. But do you know what? One thing I know is that she will be going back to Hungary this week, and she'll be saying to her coach, I got out-sprinted by Melina Andersson last year at the Worlds. I got out-sprinted by Anna Sletjo at the Europeans. Like, what are we going to do? I want to win this World Championships. How am I going to do it?
Yeah. Yeah, well, and only in a few weeks too. would it be a
Yeah.
different course, right? And this was only a 20K race. So it should
Yes.
be what, 26.2, I think, kilometers. It'll be interesting to see if that longer race maybe could be more of an advantage for Kiszli if she does have
Yeah.
that better grind than Melina Andersson. We know Melina is a really, really strong sprint athlete. So theoretically, maybe that means she is a bit better in the shorter distances. She won that short course race, again, really smoothly. It was a little bit closer there, but still a pretty clean
Yeah.
win for Melina Andersson. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see different course. Maybe there could be more paddlers who could keep up with them on a sledge show, as you say. She'll be in the mix. That could add some more.
Beach portages in Gyor,
Yeah,
which might make it level the playing field a bit. I don't know. I don't know the differences there, but yeah, I mean, these are both top level girls. They should be equally good on beach and pontoon portages. So we're just sort of speculating there, aren't
yeah,
we?
yeah. Well, I think it'll be good. It'll be good action at the World Champs in Gyor for sure. And Melina's looking really strong. It'll definitely be hard for any of the other women to challenge her. I think we have to hope that they can, at least to give us some good action in the race. Otherwise, it'll just be
Yeah, of
another
course. Yeah.
Melina show for the last few minutes. But yeah, yeah, should be some good action. And before we move on to the chase pack, we were incredibly fortunate to have the chance to actually hear from Melina Andersson herself in her own words, where we were able to ask her about some of the things we were talking about here. So here is Melina Andersson, reigning world champion and double gold medalist from World Games 2025. Melina, congratulations again on your double gold at the World Games. It was an incredible performance and really solidifies your place at the top of the marathon world after your impressive world championship win in Croatia last year. In that long race on Sunday, at what moment did you know that you had the win secured? Was there any way that Vanda Kiszli could have challenged you? And what about in the short course on Saturday?
Thank you so much. I think in a marathon, it's hard to say like, okay, now I know I can secure the win, because there's always something that can happen. Like even in the last part of the race, like maybe you do a mistake at the portage or something like that. So you can only be sure like once you cross the finish line. But I was feeling really strong, especially after the first portage. So I had like an inkling that, okay, maybe I can win this. But of course, the other girls, they always challenge me, especially Vanda. And like the first laps before the portage, they were really hard. So I feel like I was challenged a lot. And I feel like it's the same for the short course. I was challenged really hard, but I also felt like really strong. And I think the portages, they are like my strength. So they make me feel like really strong as well. And especially when I feel like I can pull away a little bit.
The conditions looked pretty challenging on Sunday, and I'm not sure that the camera did them justice. Did you have any difficulty with the wind and the waves, or are you used to training in these kinds of conditions? Did you change your tactics at all in response to the conditions?
I really think that the waves were like a lot bigger than what they looked like at the live stream, because especially like when you came into the portage, the waves were going like between land and the bridge, so it was really hard to like do the portage. So I think my like all of my takeouts looked like really bad, because yeah, it was really hard just keeping the balance, because you were paddling in like a side wind for a long time. So and yeah, I changed my tactics a little bit because of the wind, because I knew that the portage was going to be a bit shaky. So I was taking it like really slow in the takeouts, and then running hard instead and be fast into the boat, because I felt like it was a bit less wind where you put the boat in. But I'm also quite used to training in waves because where I live, I paddle like 1 kilometer at least each day in quite a lot of like side wind. So I'm quite used to being in waves. So I felt pretty comfortable.
After your big win in Chengdu, it's hard to imagine that anyone will be able to challenge you for the win at the Marathon World Championships in Gyor. But it will be a different course and maybe slightly more competitive with the addition of Anna Sletjo, who managed to beat Vanda Kiszli at the European Championships, as well as other top names. How confident are you going into Gyor, and which competitors will you be looking out for? Will you be racing K2 as well?
I definitely think that there will be a challenging year. And as you mentioned, like the course is a lot different and there will be other tactics because there's going to be a strong current most likely. And there's also a beach portage. So I think there's a lot to think about uh, like with the tactics. And there are definitely some strong girls I'm going to race. Of course, Vanda is very strong, but also Anna from Norway, she's also really strong. She won the Europeans. So I think those two are definitely two to look out for, but I think there will also be other girls. Like in a marathon, it's always hard and like anything can happen. So I always look out for everyone. And I will race the short track, the K1 long race, and I will also race the K2 with Ella Richter, who is my K2 partner from last year. So I'm really looking forward to that because we have a new boat this year. Last year we were racing a quite old Quattro. So this year we are racing a brand new boat, Anelo Cinco. So I'm really happy about that. I think it's going to make a big difference for us because we're going to have like probably a lot better steering than last year. So I'm very excited about the K2.
It's really interesting that Melina changed her portage tactics slightly during the race. She obviously recognized that there was a slight danger of messing up the get out. So she slowed it down, as she said, ran hard to compensate for it. And she felt the get in was slightly easier. I think that's amazing tactical adaptation that a lot of people should be aware of in when they're racing.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. And, we talked about seeing Vanda Kiszli adapt her tactics too. So it's definitely one of those things that, yeah, part of what makes it really exciting to watch. And some good insights from her about Gyor as well.
Just as we are, Melina's also noticed that the World Championships is potentially going to be the big freeway showdown between her, Vanda Kiszli, and Anna Sletjo, which we haven't really been treated to such a showdown for a good few years.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really, really great showdown. I know we're hyping it up a lot. It's just a few weeks away, so I'm really excited to watch it. But let's get back to the rest of the race and that chase pack behind Melina and Vanda. We had some good action in the chase pack, right?
Yeah, really, really close racing in the chase pack. I had Rebecca Mann for bronze from Australia. She was fourth at the World Champs last year, but she ended up in 8th place at the World Games. But you got this spot on. Pernille Hostrup from Denmark was third.
Yeah, I was really excited about this. We take our best guess, and I thought she had been looking really good at the European Championships. And she's a younger athlete, up and coming from Denmark. So she's a teammate of Mads Brandt Pedersen. I don't know, maybe he's sharing some marathon tips with her. But she had a good race. I was worried about her. I was shouting at the TV, I have to admit, after predicting her for the bronze. And I was worried about her at one moment early on because she made this move in the front pack while everyone was still together before the portage. And I think she was just trying to get into a better position. maybe take up the lead. I think just kind of get a better position. But the leaders responded by picking up the pace. So at this point, it was Melina Andersson and Susanna Ciccoli from Italy who kind of picked it up at the front. Vanda Kiszli went around the side to get a better wash on, I think, Anderson at that point. And Haastrup basically just got knocked back and kind of knocked off that front pack. So I thought she was totally out of the running. And she managed to come back later in the race and take bronze in a really exciting sprint finish against Maria Ray from Portugal. And Susanna Ciccoli we should talk about as well. She had a good Saturday.
She took bronze in the short course race on Saturday, didn't she? But in the long race, she was there until the first portage. But she looked like she knocked her rudder on sort of the side of a pontoon and or a bollard or something like that, and she had to retire from a race. So, which was a great shame because she's sometimes very fast, but she also does sometimes have things like this go wrong for her.
Yeah, it was definitely, I'm sure, a disappointing end to the race for her. She had such a great race on Saturday and really, looked like it went perfectly, showed what she could do. She's right up there with, Melina and Vanda taking the bronze and, seemed to have sort of a step in speed ahead of some of the other women.
Oh, she's super fast. She's been at this sort of top level for about like the last 8 years, even like 10 years. I think she was, I'm assuming she was under 23 10 years ago in Gyor. Yeah, she's fast and very experienced.
Yeah. So great racing for her on Saturday. So she definitely had some really good stuff to come out of the race, but very unfortunate on Sunday. But I'm sure she'll be at the World Championships in Gyor and have a chance to make her mark again.
She will.
Who else impressed you in the women's race?
Well, Saskia Hockley was going well from South Africa. She's still really young. She's just 21 years old. We talked about her a bit in the preview show, but we didn't have much data from how she performed competing against like a field of this caliber. She didn't have the best short course race on Saturday, so I wasn't sure how she'd do on the Sunday, but she ended up leading the chase pack for a huge portion of the race.
Yeah, she was really impressive, and it was great to see how well she went on the Sunday. She was there with Eva Barrios and Maria Ray through the first few portages. Barrios got the silver and bronze medals at the 2022 World Games. And there was definitely a while where I thought that Hockley looked like a good candidate in that fight for bronze. And then she ended up having a little bit of an incident on the fifth portage where her boat filled up with water. We didn't see the whole thing on the live stream, but it looked like maybe a little bit of a misstep. And as you said, the conditions were pretty intense out there. So it's possible that could have maybe affected her and affected that incident. But that sort of took her out of contention for the bronze. She still did well to recover and finish in ninth. And then, of course, we saw Pernille Haastrup kind of come from behind there and take that bronze. So, those conditions were...
Yeah, we should mention the conditions because it was really rough out there on Sunday, wasn't it? Like, it looked pretty tough.
Yeah, Saturday was perfect. Saturday looked beautiful.
Yeah, it was. If not just too hot.
Yep. Yeah, very hot, actually, which we'll mention in the men's race. But Sunday, really, really choppy, lot of wind, lot of waves. And I feel like usually whatever you see on screen is also not doing justice to how bad the conditions are from your view in the boat. So it's like when you can tell on screen. I would agree with that,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was definitely one bit when the screen showed some waves and I was just like, glad I'm not out there. Like,
yeah.
But we spoke to Kitty Schiphorst from the Netherlands. She finished 10th in the marathon. We spoke to her before the race and we spoke to her after. This was her first international marathon. She comes from a sprint and SLS background. And she does a lot in the ski. And she said the conditions were so rough, but she really was thankful for her ski background. But here is my conversation with Kitty.
Firstly, well done. It looked like you were racing really well. I saw you looking very controlled, and it looks like you were having a really good race. How did you find it?
Yeah, it was really, really amazing to be here and to be able to race these girls at this venue. I absolutely loved it, actually. Before I went, I didn't really know what to expect, but I'm very happy to be up there with the girls and just be able to have a really good battle. On the short course, I absolutely suffered from the beginning to the end. But in the end, when you finish, it's so much worth it, and it's really, really fun to do. And for the long course, the circumstances were a bit different. It was not as hot as we expected, so it was actually really good. But there was wind, there was rain, there was waves, and I was paddling and I saw the other girls struggling, and I just absolutely loved it. I think I had some advantage with my surf ski skills and experience. So I was really, really happy to end up in the top 10. The level is so high. I just passed the finish line and I was just smiling, and I paddled to my coach and I said, "Oh my God, I loved it so much. It was so much fun." But now a day later, I feel a bit different because my body is really sore and hurting, but still really had a good time.
Do you think you are going to go on and do more marathon racing after this introduction?
Well, I really liked it, so I'm thinking about it. In a few weeks, there will be Worlds in Hungary, which is quite tight for me because after this, I go to World Sprints. I also do then European Surf Lifesaving. And I would need to go straight to Hungary for Worlds after that to be able to compete there at the Worlds Marathon. But I'm thinking about it. I'm trying to work something out. It would be really nice to race again.
Is there anything you feel you can do to get in amongst the medals?
Well, that feels like a kind of far away to get closer to the really top girls. But what I can do, I think, is work on my tactics, work on my skills, train really hard, train really long, and we'll see how high class I can get.
Yeah, that was great to hear that Kitty had such a good time. It was great to see her out there racing so well too, and she might have been the only one to have fun in those conditions, but at least someone enjoyed it. I'm definitely hoping she does some more marathon racing. And if she's not at the World Champs in Gyor...
some podcast host living in the Netherlands has been bullying her into going to Hungary, even offering to drive her boat out there. And she's definitely considering it. But this is very unofficial news. So, yeah, I wonder. This is very unofficial news.
We'll have to hope that anonymous podcast host who lives in the Netherlands and would offer to carry boats for her is successful. Yeah, I mean, she did say she's got of course, the Sprint World Championships in Milan coming up. And then I think that's followed almost immediately by some surf lifesaving.
Yeah, SLS World Championships in Poland. Yeah, and she'd have to drive from Poland to Hungary.
Wow.
Or fly, but yeah.
Yeah, so that's a big commitment. So fingers crossed, we'll see. And if she's not in Hungary, hopefully she's back for more international marathons next season.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the men's race. We also got some of these predictions correct, not all of them. And it was really a parallel between the men's and women's races, with the race for gold and silver being between just two paddlers and also being, sort of the same fight in the short course as well as in the marathon. And in the men's race, that was the fight between Hamish Lovemore of South Africa and Mads Brandt Pedersen of Denmark.
Yeah, coming out of a short course race on Saturday, Mads and Hamish were clearly a step above the rest of the field. This wasn't entirely unexpected, but we both thought that James Russell would be closer to them. We think just the way that the course was structured and the race played out, it didn't really play to Jimbo's strengths. He also just got sort of the group moved around. He ended up on the 5th at one point and then just slipped off the wash when Mads put in a big lead, which, you can't blame him really. Mads can put in some massive leads.
We know they were going really, really hard off the start too.
Yeah, they were going hard, yeah. But perhaps the big shock was seeing the short course race come down to a sprint finish and Mads actually winning that sprint finish, because I definitely had Hamish down for winning a sprint between the two of them. Going into the long course, I knew Mads would make a move at some point to break away. But there was still the question of whether it would be another sprint finish and if Hamish could win it. And it ended up being Mads again. Still in a sprint finish, but I think Hamish knew that he was beat here and gave up the fight earlier to Mads carried on sprinting long after Hamish had dropped and won by a decisive 11 seconds. I was really happy to get the chance to speak to Hamish again post-race. So let's hear in his own words.
Hey, Hamish. Really well done at the World Games. 2 great silver medals. How did that align to your goals going into the racing? And then if you could run either of those 2 races again, is there anything you would do differently?
I was Billy, yeah. It was definitely, I came to the World Games this year with 2 different goals. The first goal was obviously to try and pull off the short course. I feel that I've made some good gains since last year short course where I got dropped on the final lap. So I was really stoked at the start of this year to be comfortable in the group. And when it broke down to just Mads and I, my strategy was working out perfectly, where I could almost just sit on the wave and try and save everything for a big sprint. I think we averaged just over 15.3. So to just sit on the wave is actually not so easy, and to try and put everything on a big finish. If I could do one thing differently, I think I would have liked to have waited probably a bit longer before I fired that sprint. But obviously in the moment you can't, I went when I did because the pace was slightly down, and it's much harder to attack when the pace is up. And Mads he's a beast, and he's also really strong in the 1,000. So whoever says, I know a lot of people say just sit on the wave and then burn him in the finish. He's strong in the finish too. So there's a reason he's the best in the world, and I was really stoked to be a bit closer than I was last year. So that was my first goal, was the short course, and then the second goal was just to try and bring home a medal in the long course. I haven't really been doing that many long paddles back home, with focusing on the sprints this year, but the 20K race is actually quite a nice distance, but it makes for a really hot couple of laps early on because there's not that extra 10Ks at the end. So I try to play my hand strong early on, and I managed to get into the break with Nico, Paufler, Balintoi, and Mads. And it's we kind of had the same plan to push the pace and create a gap. And once the portages came into play, myself and Mads managed to get a nice gap, and I managed to not defend his attacks, but I felt like I was managing to not burn too much energy when he was pushing the pace. So that side of the race I was really stoked with. But then coming into I think it was the second to last portage, I did a bit of an interval coming into the portage, and I felt both my arms starting to cramp. So I don't know whether that was because of it was really bumpy and windy early on, and I think we were all gripping our paddles a bit tighter than normal. But nonetheless, Mads was really strong in the finish of that long course. So I was just really happy to be in the mix and to get another silver medal.
Your next marathon race will be in Gyor at the World Marathon Championships. There'll be a larger field there. How do you feel that will affect your racing?
With the more entries in Gyor, obviously the field can obviously get stronger as well. You'll have, I think, the likes of Pimenta in the short course, which is, I think he's all of a sudden the favorite there. And then, on the long course, you're going to have Burkett. And I know Andy's training really hard at home this year, and it's going to be 2 completely different races. So for now, I'm going to focus on Milan, and once Milan's done, I'll try to put my focus on Gyor.
I'll head to Milan for the World Sprint Championships. On an earlier podcast, I raised the question of whether you can get your 1,000-meter time down to the sub 325 range. Do you think you're going to treat us to a PB in Milan?
I'm really looking forward to racing the K1000 again. I feel like that's where I put most of my work in this year, is training for that. So I'm not too sure what the course is like, whether it's a fast course. I'm assuming with it being well over 30 degrees every day, that the water's going to be warm. Hopefully, if all the stars line up, there's a slight tailwind. It normally suits me quite well. But I'm not putting any expectations on times. The times are always it can be anywhere from low 320s to mid 335s, depending on the venue. So I'm hoping I can be in the mix and be competitive. And it's obviously with the 1,000-meter, you got your heat, your semi, and your final. So each one is as important as the other one. And I think the main thing is to get through the heats first, and then put in a really big effort in the semis to try and secure a lane in the final. Because once you're in that final, any lane can pull it off. So that's sort of where my focus is, and I'm really looking forward to it. Yeah, really stoked with the World Games and really excited for the next few races.
That is so cool to hear from Hamish about his tactics and that kind of second guessing on the sprint finish in the short course. Do you think that he could have beaten Mads if he'd waited a bit later on the sprint?
Oh, now I don't know about that. I would definitely, I trust Hamish's judgment in choosing a sprint over mine, because my sprint's just waving my arms around quicker. The boat doesn't actually go any quicker. So just definitely I'm going to bow to Hamish's knowledge of a sprint finish there.
Yeah, I think it is a tough call, right? Because as you said, like you want to do it when the speed is a little bit lower. And so I think even if he had waited a little bit longer, it just seemed like Mads had the sprint at the end. He just, he is Mads Pedersen. He had it. But really, really impressive results from Hamish. And as he said, this is his main focus has been on the 1,000-meter, right? And I think he's really hyper focused on that build up to LA 2028, getting as fast as he can in that 1,000-meter. I'm sure he is hoping for a medal in 2028. And, with the way he's been going, he could be on track to achieve that. So pretty impressive for someone who's been so hyper focused on that 1,000-meter to do so well in the marathon.
Yeah, really impressive.
Yeah, and actually, it would only be fair to say the same for Melina Andersson too. I'm not sure how much of her training has been focused on sprinting versus the marathon, but I do know, she's had a lot of really good results in the sprinting lately, and that is still a big part of her focus. So it's clearly working for her too.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about the sort of portaging tactics between Melina Andersson and Vanda Kiszli in the women's race. I did want to give a special shout out to Hamish's portage tactics against Mads.
Yeah, I think that is a good, because Hamish was definitely really trying to cut off Mads, and really I think it was probably a defensive thing, wasn't it? Just trying to make sure that Mads couldn't do his trademark sort of, portage hard and paddle away from everyone. And Hamish was cutting the corner on that sort of dog leg on the pontoon, and just sort of checking Mads there and keeping him just behind him, wasn't he?
Yeah, I thought it was really smart tactics, because you've mentioned before, right? Like Mads likes to lead from the front. He wants to be in control of the race. He wants to break away early. And Hamish knew 100% he could not let, if he wanted to have a shot at the gold, he could not let Mads get away from him. Not to mention, to prevent the guys from behind catching up too. Not sure how, that wasn't a super serious threat, I think, but still. And so, and Mads, of course, is a really good portager. And so Hamish just, he was like, you will not drop me on a portage, and just put his body in a place that was, I think respectful, and not, it didn't seem like it was actively, causing an obstruction.
He just closed the door a bit, didn't he?
Yeah, just smart.
Yeah. And you know what? I think if you go back and look at Europeans and World Championships of the past, you would say that is probably the way that Mads is going to try and win the race. But I think after winning the sprint in the short course, I don't think Mads was ever going to do it. I think Mads was always going to go and leave it for a sprint finish. I think he's now got massive confidence in his sprint finish. I think he's changed the way he can race. And, I think that's going to be, he doesn't need to do that middle of a race drop and paddle away from everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he should have a lot of confidence in his abilities anyway, but definitely coming out of this weekend.
Interestingly, actually, Mads very often didn't used to double up at World Championships. He'd just do the K1. Previously, when he has broke away halfway through the race and done 10, 15 kilometers on his own at such a high pace, that must have a huge effect on him the next day, because he is still human. He is the world champion, but he is still human. Whereas, if he can sit in the pack a little bit, really sit in and just win the sprint, it might leave him some more for that K2 race the next day.
Yeah. And he's racing K2 with Philip Knudsen, is that right?
Yes. And they are the Danish national champions. And yeah, they'll be racing in Gyor. I mean, that is a serious boat.
Yeah. That's going to be quick. Yeah, well, that's great. Yeah. I mean, more Mads, the better, right? So what about the rest of the men's field, though? Were there any surprises there?
Yes, potentially. We saw the Hungarian athlete, Balint Noe, come 12th at the Europeans. And he's not necessarily a massive K1 racer. He's often been in the K2. But he actually had a really good race. He made the front group. He did drop off eventually, and he did finish 5th. But can't work out whether he just had a really bad Europeans, or whether he is now peaking for the home World Championships in 2 weeks' time. And, he's in some really good form at the moment.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see for sure. I was also a little surprised to see him in that front pack, and he stayed in the front pack for a while. Yeah, really. And we talked about just how fast they were moving too. So he had to have a lot of speed to stick with them. And after he dropped off, he ended up, as you say, in 5th, and that was a sprint finish against James Russell, who had kind of come back after getting dropped off, then came back from being behind to race Noe for that 5th place. So, yeah.
Noe's obviously got a big finish on him if he can outsprint Jimbo.
Yeah.
But another guy I thought did really well was Nico Paufler. We knew he could do well. He also made the front group. It did overextend him a little bit to stay there for quite a while, and he did drop back and finish 7th. But he probably had a great race, sticking with that front group for so long. And Nico's been knocking on the door of being like a major powerhouse in marathon paddling for a while now. He really announced himself on the scene with his brother in the K2 race about 8 years ago now. And, he's been up there ever since, but never really breaking into that front group on a consistent basis, on a consistent sort of period of time. So that was great for him.
Yeah, really, really well raced on his part. As you say, he did drop off a little bit at the end, but yeah, I mean, just to be up in that front group for such a long time, it was a big achievement.
Yeah.
And it'd be good to see how he goes at the World Championships as well. Maybe this is his year.
Maybe.
So let's wrap up the men's race with those last couple of sprint finishes. So we talked about the 5th place sprint between Jimbo and the Hungarian. We also had a great sprint for the bronze, which was between Jeremy Candy of France and José Ramalho of Portugal. So they had both come from that chase group, being a little bit further behind the front pack. We saw, those two guys drop off the front pack, the Hungarian and the German. And then it was Candy and Ramalho who came from behind to sprint it out for the bronze. And it was José Ramalho who won that sprint. That was a really close one, though. Really good racing. Great result for Jeremy Candy coming in 4th as well. And yeah, I mean, Ramalho is just, he's a great marathon paddler.
He is. But I mean, we gave a bit of a disservice to both of these athletes in the preview. I mean, me especially suggesting that Ramalho was in the twilight of his career. I mean, he is. I mean, but he is still going to be getting good results, and I do wonder how long he can keep getting medals at international level. But he still is. And Jeremy Candy is, as you know, been getting top results now for also about the last 9 years. I think he's been right at the top. So they're both very experienced athletes, and whilst we did know that they were going to be up there, we probably didn't give them enough podcast time in the preview.
Yeah. Well, they did a great job. And, I think for Ramalho especially, like, to have such a long career, and this is, technically the twilight only because he's had such a long and successful career and still be getting bronze medals at the World Games.
Yeah.
It really just goes to show how good he is. And Ramalho also got the bronze in the short course too. So we ended up seeing an identical top 3 between that short course and long course too, which was maybe a little bit surprising, maybe not as surprising given that the long course was 10K shorter than usual.
Yeah.
Arguable, but yeah, great weekend for Ramalho. I did feel bad for John Amenvold, who was up there near the front from the beginning in the short course and the long course. And he should have been a podium contender definitely in the short course, and ended up suffering from, I think it was probably either heat stroke or heat exhaustion. So we mentioned it was really, the water was great on Saturday, but it was very, very hot. I think it was above 37 degrees Celsius. And Vold is from Norway, so safe to say he probably doesn't get the chance to train in 37 degrees very frequently. And obviously you're putting your body through a lot in those temperatures. And it's a tough thing to have happen. And I have to wonder if that ended up maybe affecting him on the long course too, because it can be a pretty significant hit to your body.
You can't recover from that the very next day, can you? That's tough. He's another one that's really just starting to fully step up to being at that top level. Several years ago, again, I think in the K2, him and his brother really sort of came onto the international scene, made some big moves and ultimately falling back. And I think they did that for a few years. They'd always be there before falling back, but he's now normally there at the end of races if it's not for heat exhaustion.
Yeah, because he was doing really, really well in that short course before that point, especially. And, both of the Vold brothers, so Ivan Vold is his brother, have had cancer treatment in the last few years and recovered from that to, race really well and win medals. And I mean, it's just incredible. And they certainly know how to, come back from tough challenges. So huge respect for both of those guys. But let's take a step back. We've talked a little bit about what we can expect from the World Championships in Gyor, Hungary in September. Who else will you be looking out for there?
Well, I think going into Gyor, you're going to add two athletes in particular. You're going to add Andy Burkett from South Africa, and you're going to add Anna Sletjo from Norway. They are going to join the four athletes that we mentioned in first and second in both of the men's and women's races, and make, I think, very interesting freeway battles. As Hamish said earlier, the larger field will definitely be changing things up in Gyor.
Yeah, and he also mentioned Andy Burkett too, so we definitely know that's going to be a good battle.
Yeah, I wonder whether or not they're going to have a bitter rivalry or a slight gentleman's agreement.
Oh, yeah. Are we going to see some team tactics from the two South Africans?
Don't know. What would you do?
I mean, they are really close too. I think Hamish and Andy, they're K2 partners. They're really close. I know. I think maybe they will try some team tactics to avoid letting Mads get away from them.
Okay. Let's do the warm down. What do you have for the warm down this week?
So I have an interesting dragon boat update. While we were focused on the marathon kayaking at the World Games, the World Games also had two other paddle sports, so canoe polo and dragon boat. The canoe polo, I think, is happening this week, and then the dragon boat was happening basically at the same time as the marathon kayaking. It was scheduled on the same days. It was on the same course. I think they even shared shuttles sometimes because I saw some fun photos of people together, and it seemed like there was a really nice kind of like cross paddle sport, good vibes type situation, which is really cool. But what I thought was more interesting about this, so I mentioned Dragon Boat a couple of weeks ago when the World Championships were happening in Brandenburg, Germany. Dragon Boat has two federations. The ICF, soon to be known as Paddle Worldwide, is one of them, but there is also the IDBF, the International Dragon Boating Federation. And so the dragon boating we talked about the other day was the IDBF World Championships in Germany. Some of the athletes and teams were actually similar or the same between both events. So I think some of the Ukrainian team members were the same. I want to say maybe the Indonesian team as well. But then I think others were different. So you'll have different athletes kind of racing for the IDBF versus the ICF. But the IDBF posted on Instagram about the World Games, and actually the IDBF president, Claudio Schermi, attended the World Games dragon boating event at the invitation of ICF president, Thomas Konieczko, and Ames president, Stefan Fox, this is quoting from their statement, marking a positive step toward deeper collaboration between federations. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Maybe we'll see more collaboration between the ICF and the IDBF in the future. And that would hopefully be a good thing for dragon boating. So yeah, let's see.
Let's see.
Well, I think that's all we've had for today. This has ended up being a long one because we had a lot to cover, but also because we had some really, really phenomenal athletes who joined us to talk about their racing. Thank you so much to all of those phenomenal paddlers. And thanks to you for listening. So until next time, see you on the water.
See you on the water.